Mr. Glenn, what is your plan for improving infrastructure as the population and land development increases? Can anything be done to reduce traffic backups downtown during rush hours?
All right, thank you. I've served for the last year and a half on the Planning Commission, so we've had the opportunity to see the growth that's coming in. Infrastructure obviously is more than just roads and highways. Obviously it's sewers, the whole electrical grid, traffic planning, and then the infrastructure related to that growth affects your other departments. It affects public safety, public works. You have to continue to plan much further ahead. So when we look at a new neighborhood in the Planning Commission, that's typically a year to 2 years before that ground breaks. Things work through the county related to how water runoff is managed and how through DOT, through how traffic is managed. So the city doesn't have as much effect over those things as you would think we do. Those fall under different government agencies. The thing that we can do is try to help developers look at longer range plans. We have people come in front of us for new neighborhoods that come to us 5 and 6 times with changes. If we could work with them to have solid plans that reach further out. We have folks who bring small parcels of land to develop, knowing they're going to develop larger parcels. If they could work with the Planning Commission and City Council, City Government to see a longer range plan, then it gives you time to prepare both for the infrastructure changes, for permits that are required to make those changes, and the money to set aside to reach those necessary infrastructure improvements.
All right, Mr. Glenn, thank you very much. We will move down the line, as Allison mentioned earlier. Mr. Gooch, would you like me to repeat the question?
Absolutely.
Okay. What is your plan for improving infrastructure as the population and land development increase? Can anything be done to reduce traffic backups downtown during rush hours?
Let's start with downtown. Sorry, can you hear me back there? Wow, I can hear me up here. Let's start with downtown. Some people are happy about the islands. This is what we're talking about, the islands? Yes, no, seeing nods. Yeah, the islands. Before the islands, I grew up in this town with blinking lights at night. It was right downtown before the clock tower. They rolled the streets up and the lights started blinking. That's what they did. So, as we grew, we had 4 lanes coming through town. It wasn't a problem, but as we began to grow, we had a problem. Nobody could turn left in Simpsonville, anywhere on Main Street. So, state, this is a state road, this is not city road. The state, in conjunction with the city, said, what are we going to do about this? The plan was put in place to put these islands in, slow down traffic, get it to 1 lane. We can actually get some turn lanes put in, and it solved the problem. It made a problem, but it solved the problem. It's slower to get through town, but our traffic accidents are virtually nil now at our left turns. I don't know that there's a better solution than what we have. I don't like it. It's annoying to me. Everybody in here, I'm sure, has found a way around it, but we do it. So the problem I want to fix in downtown, as far as traffic, when you cross across Curtis at the railroad tracks, if you're the only person sitting on the opposite end and nobody shows up, we've got a 7-minute traffic light. That is so annoying. And in the middle of the night, or late at night, early morning, I had somebody complain to me about it this morning. I want to fix the traffic lights so the lights work a little better. That's what we got to work with on the state. Now, to infrastructure, I've only got 30 seconds. We got to have a long-range plan. We're growing west, east on West Georgia. We're growing east. We're landlocked to Fountain Inn and Malden. We're growing this way and that way. I want to make sure we have plans in place that will work for everybody. And I'll have to talk about that later. I'm done.
All right, Mr. Gooch, thank you. And Mr. Glenn, Mr. Gooch, thank you for sitting inside that 2-minute time limit. Now to Ms. Houlihan, and would you also like the question to be repeated?
Yes, please.
Okay. What is your plan for improving infrastructure as the population and land development increases? Can anything be done to reduce traffic backups downtown during rush hours?
I think that Mr. Glenn and Mr. Gooch both talked to the fact that we need to do some strategic long-term planning, and I think that that's just a given. We need that, and we need the budget to go along with it. So we need to be looking far down the road to make those kind of choices for the city. For downtown, we do want to keep growing, and we want to have more business activity happening in the downtown area to support the businesses that are there. I had an email from somebody who lives in my ward, Ward 3, just the other day with a question about the traffic. I live here, I live over on College Street. What are you going to do about this? There are backups because, as Mr. Gooch said, people try to get around the problem in Main Street, which creates problems going back into some of these neighborhoods. So obviously it's something that we need to think about. I think it's important that we make data-driven decisions there, which means we need to do some research in order to determine what the problem is and how we are able to solve it. So that's me on infrastructure.
All right, Ms. Houlihan, thank you. Mr. Rodifer, would you like the question repeated?
As we grow, we've done a lot of work on the Planning Commission, like Mr. Glenn already commented, and an example of infrastructure change goes to our Public Works Department. We recently approved, with recommended approval for City Council, a transfer station change at Public Works, which saves a lot of money and enables us to actually provide trash services at a lower cost, which enables us to continue to build city services with the same staff level as we bring homes into Simpsonville. So that's a great way. It's a very innovative thing that our Public Works Director brought to it. It was his idea. He had the financial backing and the plan to do that. It was not a unanimous decision on the Planning Commission. The vote was 5-2, but we respectfully built to our decision, and ultimately it passed and was approved by City Council. As far as Main Street traffic in Simpsonville, I do believe that it can be changed for the better. There are a lot of things. I would love to actually see some more green space in downtown Simpsonville, Main Street. Putting a 4-lane highway through here causes everybody to bypass right through as a throughway and does not make them stop and enjoy everything that downtown Simpsonville has to offer. Any urban planner will tell you the slowing traffic down through that corridor will actually lead to growth. And the example I'm going to give is the city of Greenville when they removed the Camperdown Bridge. It was controversial. There was a lot of opposition to it, but boy has that transferred downtown Greenville. And I guarantee you there are more traffic cars going through Main Street, Greenville than there are in Simpsonville on any given day. Thank you.
Mr. Rodifer, thank you. Mr. Cummings.
I'll try not to repeat what anybody else said, but I'll give an example as it relates to church. Sometimes it's annoying and frustrating when you're at church and you hear a baby crying. But what I'll tell you is if you stop hearing babies crying, that means you don't have any growth. You don't have any future. So as it relates to this city, I hate that we do have a growth and a traffic problem. But if we stop seeing cars running through Simpsonville, the next question is, where are people moving? Where are they going? Why are the businesses not coming here? I will say that we definitely need to be more proactive in our planning and our strategy with our Planning Commission. We need to have the council to be adept and sometimes to be able to move swift to make decisions, sometimes very quickly in order to minimize some further costs moving forward. But the main issue is just strategizing and looking forward and forecasting towards the future to help out with future traffic issues. Thank you.
Mr. Cummings, thank you. Mr. Donnelly now.
Well, the way I see it is we've got to work together, the Planning Commission, and we got to look down the road. We can't look for next week, next year. We got to plan way in advance. We can't just do it Monday, Tuesday. What we need to do is work with the Planning Commission, work with the DOT, and try to correct this problem as best we can. Because they end up going around the side streets, which bothers some of the neighborhoods. It also impedes some people from going downtown. And downtown's wonderful. We need to be down there, okay? Thank you.
Mr. Donnelly, thank you. Ms. Curtis now.
Thank you. The first question was about the traffic. Let me go back here. Traffic management. Down Main Street, as I forget which one of them said it, but anyway, that is a state street. And as far as the state street goes, I believe that we've done pretty much all that we can as far as down Main Street goes. And my business is on Fairview Road. Fairview Road seems to be a hot spot for traffic jams. I mean, it is bumper to bumper. I see it every single day. And with the holidays right around the corner, I can tell you that the parking lot in front of my business is going to become a main thoroughfare. It's like an interstate highway out there. So I think that the red lights on Fairview Road need to be addressed as far as timing goes. I think that we probably could entertain that thought of installing another red light out there just to slow the traffic down, because they are rip snorting out there 24 hours a day, so it seems, whenever my store's open. So that being said, and then as far as infrastructure goes, infrastructure is one of those things that we have roads that we need to be focusing on. We have a bridge that is out. We have things that need to be addressed as a city right now that we are in. Currently, it's in the budget to have the bridge fixed. We currently have some money to do some paving, and we'll address that later. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Curtis, thank you. By the looks of things, I know, Ms. Lockaby, you're concerned about giving everyone your germs, but it looks like this microphone has a long cord. So if you want to use that particular microphone, are we okay with that? But this one is long enough? Go ahead and use that microphone. Wouldn't be good for somebody not to be able to hear you. Just wanted to make sure you're going to be here.
This is a lot more fun the other night.
Okay, he's got me.
Here we go.
My turn, may I?
Absolutely.
One of the problems with the traffic on Main Street in Curtis is the turn, if you're trying to turn left from either side. And the railroad has issues with us putting another lane. If we put another lane in, railroad has to approve it. And we have worked on that forever. I have asked for a delayed green on either side, just to let one side go forever until they get cleared, and then delayed, the other one will turn green. So that is something I would love to work on. I've been trying that for years, ain't got it done yet. But I think that would help a ton, because if you're gonna turn left, you sit through that light 3 or 4 times. Thank you very much.
Ms. Lockaby, thank you. And Mr. Rash?
If you would repeat the question.
Absolutely, sir. What is your plan for improving infrastructure as the population and land development increase? Can anything be done to reduce traffic backups downtown during rush hours?
Well, as far as downtown during rush hour, we've got a serious problem there in the fact that you'd have to deal with the state DOT. They're got their hands in the pie. You have buildings up to the street. In other words, you have a developed area, so you'd have to almost remove some buildings or something like that and to widen it. So in an area like downtown, it would take really a study by traffic engineers that know what they're doing to kind of figure out some things to make things better. But in the future, in the outlying areas, as we're talking the way the city grows, I think the thing there is we need to be proactive and put the infrastructure in to support the building and the roads, and do it before the fact and not come back and do it after the fact. I have noticed so many times, a good example is Lawrence Road in Greenville. At one time, there was a lot of business there. The road became very, very congested, and by the time the city and state got it fixed to where the traffic would move better, the business had moved and it no longer needed it. They needed it somewhere else. So I think the thing to do is be proactive and have the roads, bridges, electrical system, door, sewer, whatever, set up before you put all the building in the area. We have noticed in out of state, a lot of shopping centers, and a good case in point will be the Publix, what Publix and Belts and that group are, is where you have a road like Fairview Road, you have too many entrances into the road. What you need is a few entrances coming into the main road at a red light, and all the intermingling between Belts and Publix and all the other stores that are in that area, so you have an interior road within the area and use all the traffic back and forth between these various buildings, interior, and only have limited outlets to the main road with red lights. Thank you.
Mr. Rash, thank you. All right, that concludes the round for our first question. Allison, now we'll pick to see who is first to answer the second question. It is Ms. Houlihan. Are you ready? Question is, what are the top 5 things money should be spent on in Simpsonville and why?
Okay, so So, the top 5 things money should be spent on in Simpsonville. Well, first of all, we need to make sure that we maintain our current quality of life, which means we need to make sure that we have the money in the departments to do the things that we need to do. So the police department, the fire department, public works, parks and recreation. We gotta keep that funded. Number 2, from there, I really think we need to be able to put some money into economic development here in the city. We don't have any budget for it. We have no one who is responsible for it. We know that that works well in other cities, so I think that we should be prepared to start talking about how we can do that here in Simpsonville. Number 3 is, kind of goes along with that, I think that we need to put some money into a commitment to community and cultural programs and services. I think that that includes providing access to the arts. I would love to be able to see us put some money into doing something there and to doing something with the old Simpsonville Elementary School to that end. I don't think that that necessarily means pulling money right out of taxpayers' pockets. I think that there are creative ways that we can do that, to find the funding, to work together with people from the community, businesses, individual citizens, nonprofit groups, in order to get that sort of thing done. And really kind of in there was 2 things, so I think I'm at 4. So the other part would be the community and cultural programs and services. We need to have a better emphasis on that. We could do that as well in the school building. And again, it doesn't take that much money to start offering programs for the community that focus on things like history or art or getting people in the community to get together.
All right, Mr. Lahan, thank you. I'll leave it to you to ask me if you would like the question put to you again. Mr. Rutherford.
A lot of what Mr. Houlihan just said, but all I'm going to use on my 5 items, those are 5 city departments right now. People move to Simpsonville, and they're going to remain happy here if their needs are met for administration, parks and rec, public works, fire, and police. Those are all basic necessities, but there are 5 absolutely critical departments. I was talking to a gentleman earlier who said, yes, he's moved here from out of the area, and our tax base is a lot lower than other areas of the country, but our services are second to none. I've lived as an adult in 4 different states, and I have to mimic that sentiment. I have no complaints about our city and what we pay for those services. But as we move forward, we absolutely have to start accounting for budgets so we can grow. And 2 things, I'm going to touch a little bit on economic development. I do agree with that. We need to start planning that because economic policy for growth costs money. It's just not sitting there. It's just not going to happen on its own. If the city wants to be proactive in growing that, we have to know what that cost is going to be and what the rewards are on the backside. As an elected official, obviously we don't want to say, cut things from our budget for money that's not coming in anymore without replacing that, so we have to be very careful with that, but it can be done responsibly. And there's also a little infrastructure on West Georgia Road on a sewer line that if the city can help with that or partner with the county on that can greatly increase how the city can grow to the west.
All right, Mr. Rutherford, thank you. Mr. Cummings.
I'm not sure if you said to list these things in order because all of these things are important. So I'll first preface by saying that every one of these issues are very important. There's not one that's more important than the other. Infrastructure is huge. I think anything that you talk about, whether it's growth, whether it's the arts or anything that we talk about, if we don't have the necessary infrastructure in place today and planning for the next 5 years, it'll just be a disaster. So I think that is a very important thing that we need to keep in mind. Next thing would be our departments. Again, we've mentioned this before. One of the reasons why we moved here, it's a great place, and I didn't know all of you all then. If I had known you all before, I would have moved a lot sooner. But it's a great place, it's safe. It's a great place to raise a family. Great place to have recreation and worship and all that kind of stuff. So I think if those reasons are very important because of our department heads and folks that we have in place. You didn't really ask this question, but I will also say that our department heads, need to almost be a CEO of their own departments, and what the council should do would be as an advisory role to those folks. I'll leave the last space blank, and I'll say, because the council shouldn't be making all the decisions, we actually almost report back to the citizens. So I think there should be some citizen input or what are some of the things that you all want for the council to look forward to. Last but not least, economic development. Obviously, you have to develop the economy, you have to develop our community, and if we don't have that, then the city will stop growing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cummings. Now, Mr. Donnelly.
Well, as the previous candidates who have all said, the departments are the number one thing that have to be prioritized. Economic development, that does come along with it, that does drive the community. Funding it is another issue. Same with the arts and cultural events. These things are all very important, and one drives the other. The arts and culture will help the economy, and that'll bring everybody around to the business end of the funding. One other thing is, I can't emphasize it enough, is that we're all here for one thing, Simpsonville, for you people. You're the ones that decide where we're going with what we got. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Donnelly, thank you, and Ms. Curtis now.
Thank you. Top 5 things that I would spend money on and why. As they say, economic development. Economic development is one of those things that we need here in Simpsonville. If we can improve businesses coming in, that improves our tax base. Building up our tax base floats all boats. That's how we need to look at economic development, that it's going to help everyone, not just one particular area or one particular person, but it's going to help the entire area. Community development. This community development means actually looking at the old elementary school. That is asset of the city that right now at present is just sitting there. It's not being utilized. I know for a fact that there are people in this community willing to step up to the plate and do what it takes to actually secure that building and let it be our shining star here in Simpsonville, with the approval of council and with the approval of the mayor, which I will absolutely approve. That being said, infrastructure. Infrastructure is one of those things that I have sat in many council meetings and listened to over the past 8 years. As most of you know, my husband currently serves on council and he's been there for 8 years. Infrastructure, we have the opportunity to have a new judicial center built by Greenville County here in Simpsonville. It's just a matter of us acquiring the land. We have not acquired the land, and time is a-wasting because right now Travelers Rest has their building being built as we speak, and we do not. I'll continue later. Thank you.
All right, Ms. Curtis, thank you for keeping within the 2-minute time there. And now to Ms. Lockerbie.
I'll ditto what everybody else is saying about the departments. We need to maintain the equipment for the departments so they can give us the services we need. The school, I agree, we need to get some donations for the school. I'd like to see it some kind of a cultural center, but the city doesn't have the money to do that. We're paying $1 million a year for Heritage Park. And to tell you the truth, when we took out the loan for Heritage Park, that included the school, so we're still paying on the school. It's not paid for yet. The economic development, I totally agree, we need economic development. We need to finish our parks, the Love You Park series, we need to continue with that because that will be community development. And the last thing, infrastructure, and we've already beat that to death. Thank you.
Ms. Lockerbie, thank you. All right, Mr. Ash.
If you don't mind, repeat the question.
Yes, absolutely, sir. What are the top 5 things money should be spent on in Simpsonville and why?
Well, so there's so many things that need to be done, it's hard to say which is priority 1, which is priority 2, which is priority 3. But I feel that infrastructure is probably the number 1 priority because without that, we aren't gonna have anything. We need the roads, the bridges, the sewers, the power lines, the communication equipment. We need all this in place before we try to build in an area. And then try to come back after the fact and do it. So I would say infrastructure is probably number 1. The next thing that would be the second thing I would say would be the services that the state requires cities to provide to their citizens, or requires or suggests. That would include police, fire, public works. I think those three would be in that category. Then probably the next item down the list would be recreation. We need to have something for our children to go and play their t-ball or little league football or whatever the case may be, but we need some kind of recreation. We also need, and I think these things are nice, to have some arts or some of these things, but with them, I think even though they're nice, we need to have them funded before we do them, because we have an albatross around our neck right now because of the amphitheater at Heritage Park. This is preventing this city from doing a lot of things we would like to do. People in the city don't realize it, but in excess of $1 million of your taxes every year is skimmed right off the top to pay the bankers that the city has, it's absolutely nothing for. Thank you.
Mr. Rush, thank you. Mr. Glenn now.
Obviously, you've heard a lot of the same. So it's one way or the other. Sorry. So obviously, you've heard a lot of the same things. What I'm going to go at is when you say, what are 5 things and why, I think you're looking for priorities. And so I look at the city budget, when I've studied the city budget, preparing for this run, I look at it how I look at a household income or a household budget. So we all have a budget. We all live within our means, or we try to, or we should. And so when you look at what are those things you pay first and what are those things you pay last? Things you pay first, obviously the things that keeps the lights on, the house from being repossessed, and food in the cupboards, right? So infrastructure that maintains your services and your property in the city. First thing, you've got to invest in those things that you've got to keep up. And then your infrastructure for development. As we grow, you've got to start setting that money aside or planning for that money in the future expenses and revenues for how you improve that infrastructure. You've got to keep those things important. Maintaining what you got, number one, growth, number 2. And then you look at your departments, because obviously folks move here and they expect services. Everybody talks about a lot of different departments. One that hadn't been talked about tonight is the fire department. I'll talk about that. I spent about 12 years as a fireman at East Simpsonville, which became Clear Springs Fire and Rescue. It's a special purpose tax district. A special purpose tax district. So what that means is they have a contract with the county to provide fire service to an area. We have the same thing here in the city. We all live in the city. We get our taxes paid for the fire department to come. Same with coverage outside the city. If you look at the total budget, about $17 million of our total budget, $3 million of that is a fire service contract. We have to maintain that with the county to keep them happy. That's an investment and a revenue stream we have to maintain. But obviously, economic development and planning. Planning being the first thing. How do we do it? And then how do we invest? And then partnership for fun, parks, recreation, and arts.
Mr. Glenn, thank you. Mr. Gooch.
If you look at our current budget, in any budget we've done, half that budget goes towards payroll. We've got to maintain what we have right now, but the real question is, what things do we do when we have some left over? The last 2 budgets have planned for just about nothing left over. Last budget, current budget we're operating under, planned for roughly $40,000 in surplus. 2-3 years ago, it was $300,000 and $400,000 in surplus. We're not planning for that. That has to change. Today would be great, but we're going to have to wait to the next budget process. What I'm hearing from everybody, good answers. Honestly, what I'm hearing though is, if we grow the government, it's going to work. We'll build the government and it'll come. Folks, I'm here to tell you, growing any department or all departments is not going to make us successful. It is investing in our people who actually pay our taxes and run our businesses are going to make us successful. So what are we going to invest in? And this is an investment. We do need the infrastructure, and I'm not going to beat that dead horse. The infrastructure is the roads, the bridges, the things you see and drive on. It's also the people who help maintain and run it. It's the arts and the culture of our community. And I'm not going to beat that dead horse, you know about that. There are things we also need that really, really matter to me. The arts matter to me. We need to make public and private partnerships. We need to re-partner with our local businesses. We need to make an investment in who we are as a city and who we are as a people so that people want to come here. And one last thing, Heritage Park, the amphitheater, nobody skims anything off the top. And if you have evidence to prove that, please present it. That is paid for through hospitality and accommodations tax. 2% that you pay for every dollar for prepared food pays the bonds, pays the bills. That is not in your property tax. It is an optional tax. You can choose to pay it or not. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Gooch, thank you.